But Cincinnati's always been a cheap organization. Always, forever. This, to me, watching the game was about Joe Burrow. He's done everything. He's made him viable. He's made him interesting. He got him to a Super Bowl. But they have been terrified for 2 years. They just keep moving off defensive players. They're not even paying Jamar Chase yet. And they're already moving off the back end of their defense.
Bengals wet the bed last night with no Andy Dalton in sight. I thought if I just had tea, things would be alright for me. But let me get to the point. This team, she disappoint. We hear boos from the crowd. I'm too good to not be proud. And you don't know how it feels. Oh, you don't know how it feels. In Cincy. Welcome to the number one Bengals podcast. I'm your host, Eddie McDuke.
You are loud.
Yeah.
You're excited for someone who
Well, that was Joe Burrow, actually.
has lost.
Was
is a fan of a team that has lost and will probably never recover from these losses ever.
Well, neither will Andrew Seiler, who's been crying and throwing up, and it ruined him. He's such a young man too.
Yeah.
But here's the thing, guys: we have to push through, and we have to figure something out. Because look, Joe Burrow, he's still very young, and his wrist is brand new, and so he is looking at this, and we're going to talk to D-Man, who caught on tape the undercover filming of Joe Burrow.
Wow.
Pushing Zach Taylor around. We're going to discuss that. Yeah.
That's great.
And I'm not talking about TMZ. I'm talking about something way, way classier than that.
Yeah, BBC maybe.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. But look, the Bengals predictably lost to the Washington
What do you mean
Commanders.
predictably?
Well, they were
Everybody
offensive powerhouse. What were they supposed to do?
Everybody on our show predicted that the Redskins would win.
Yeah, but what do we know other than John? So here's the thing. Where do they go from here? They get Andy Dalton. So we all know, John, that the offense is finally doing pretty well. Joe Burrow is doing very well. He's looking pretty healthy. But that defense.
I wouldn't even say that.
Yeah.
I think that's overstated.
I agree.
When you look at Joe Burrow's stats, sure, he did great. That's not how games work.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, if they were scoring to catch up because they were ridiculously behind, that's not the same thing as having a good offense and leading the game.
Exactly.
Okay.
Yeah. So, John.
If things were right with the offense, you would have won against.
Well,
the Chiefs.
that is my question for our guest, who we cannot reveal, but you will see very soon. Yeah. But that's the question.
Yeah.
Is Joe Burrow, he plays offense, right? So if he's staying in his lane, what is the lane if he's going and he's telling the coaches, hey, I don't like what we did tonight. Well, the offense was fine. They didn't punt. They didn't turn it over. Yeah, they had some field goals. But, I mean, right, John? I mean, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, I thought there was more of that.
No, I have no idea what we're doing here. Yeah, John.
Bengals start with the ball, and they drive down the field and score a touchdown. It's to Jamar Chase, of all people, right?
Yeah.
Who's been frustrated beyond belief for the past month, and
Right.
I think, all is right in the world. And then Washington gets the ball, and they score a touchdown. And then the two unfortunate negatives with the offense is that their next two drives get into the red zone and then only result in field goals. I believe Evan McPherson missed a field goal in that series of events as well. And at the end of the game, you have 33 points because you missed a field goal and you tried to go for two. And if you had made the field goal, you probably would have had at this point, 34 points or however many points, right? And the game would have been completely different in the end. But that's still 99% of the time more than enough to do anything in this league and, win. So it's tough. I understand what Hodgie is saying about
Yeah.
you have to treat every game individually, and every game is not the same.
Right.
But you knew that the Commanders were not going to give you a lot of possessions because they were going to try to keep the ball with the run game, with Jaden Daniels extending plays, all that stuff. And the Bengals only had, 6 possessions in this game? And they scored on basically all of them, maybe 7 possessions. It's really tough for me to say that an A- performance from the offense is the main reason why they lost this game. When
Not the main
historically,
reason.
Yeah.
terrible.
I agree.
Absolutely historically
main reason.
I
terrible
agree.
defensive outing.
Yeah.
It's just what
not
it is.
the main reason.
Well-
not the main reason.
Well-
But what I'm saying is, let's not have the narrative be that the Cincinnati Bengals offense is fixed,
Okay.
or that
Look,
it's here.
look,
I
we
mean, you brought
They
up
had-
McPherson. You brought
No, they
up
had-
McPherson. You know, McPherson missed an extra point against the Chiefs. If he had made that extra point, we would have tied that game and gone to overtime and won.
Right.
Well, the
But
Chiefs
he
won for
didn't
2
know
as well,
that.
and
He didn't know they
also
were going
missed.
to
So that
lose.
also meant, but I even forget what I was going to say.
Yeah,
Because
that's
what
the
I
thing,
said was
John.
very
Well-
deep, John.
Well, that's true. But also, here's the thing: we are just guessing here. But I have the guy. Look, I have
but
the
can I
guy.
address-
He's in
can
the
I address-
waiting room. He
Wait,
has
can-
the answers.
Can
Yeah.
he just wait 1 minute because I want?
I don't think he can.
I think
he
he
has
can.
like 5 other shows tonight. Okay,
No,
make
I
it
just
quick.
want to
Yeah.
address because we have an old-time fan named
Yeah.
Andrew.
Dr. Andrew Sala. Yes.
Dr. Andrew said. And he has asked the question. He says, should I give up on the Bengals? And he's a young man, and I've been around.
Yeah.
I've been a Bengals fan for a long time. Can I answer
Yeah.
him real quick? Andrew, you made the biggest mistake of your life
Yeah.
when you decided to be a Bengals fan. You could have picked any team. You picked this team.
Yeah.
This franchise.
Yeah.
They
And-
put you down.
And by the way,
They disappoint you. They break your heart over and over and over again.
yeah.
That's
And
what
you've
you
been
need to
you've
be
been
Bengals fan.
fact checked, Hodgie. It was a bad snap by Adomitis in Kansas City. It was not Evan McPherson's fault. Okay, look. Here's the thing. We can sit here, we can talk forever, like we normally do.
Right.
But I want to get the facts. I want to get the on the ground reporting. I want the ESPN level of precision
Analysis.
and analysis
And handsomeness.
and handsomeness. I'm talking about
Stephen A.
Mr. Even better,
Better.
Mr. Ben Baby.
Ben Baby Clooney.
He's on the show. He's on the
Ben
show.
Baby Clooney.
Yeah.
Is this my part to talk? Do I talk?
Yeah.
yeah.
We're done. Yeah.
Yes. It's good. It's good
Say
to hear
something.
you here, guys. I feel like we have a lot to talk about.
We do. Mr. Ben
So,
Baby.
Ben,
yeah.
should we
yeah.
should we give up hope?
Listen, the thing is the schedule is still really bad, guys, and so I think that's the thing to look at it. And I tweeted it out or posted or whatever we call that social media platform now. That they have, they're 0-3, yes, but they still have around 36% chance of making the playoffs. And I think a lot of that stems from the fact that the schedule is, quite frankly, really bad. And you're fortunate that, you looking back, you finished in that 4th place schedule. So
Right.
you get a chance to face a lot of the teams that you're going to face the rest of the year. Now, that being said, you do end up having to face, you lost one of those games already, one of those 4th place games against New England. So that's
Just
a little
one.
tough.
Just one.
Ben,
But,
Ben,
it's
Ben
not-
Baby.
It's still early. It's still
Ben
early.
Baby, I want to run a statistic by you
Yeah.
that's been floating around, which is that the team that goes 0-3, they
Yeah.
say has around a 2.5% chance of winning the playoffs. Now, my team, my crackpot team,
Yeah.
did some investigation, and
Right.
that is the same as flipping 5 consecutive heads when you flip the coin 5 times. If you're a professional actor, it's your chances of winning an Oscar.
Yeah.
It's your chance of getting struck by lightning once in your lifetime, or finding a 4-leaf clover in a field of 500 clovers.
Yeah.
So that doesn't seem like really great odds, Ben Baby.
Yeah, it's also the same odds James Rapine has of beating me in a foot race, but that's neither here nor there.
No.
Yeah. Well, no, he deserved it. He deserved it.
He did. He hasn't come back
Bro was
on the
getting
show.
roasted by the entire state of Maryland this morning for his YouTube show. Ben just had to just bury him deeper into the ground.
Poor James.
I love
James
James.
Rapine,
James
friend
knows
of the
I'm-
show.
I love
love the
James.
guy.
Love
great
James.
hair, great voice,
Great.
great dancer. We
Great
love
hair.
him.
What hair?
Well, that like Hodgie.
Yeah.
His hair looks like Hodgie's.
We are 2 birds of a feather, or lack of feathers.
Yes. Well, you each have one feather on your head. Look, here's the thing, Mr. Ben Baby. I want to get right into it. Okay.
Dig into
So
it.
yeah. So you caught on film. You caught something that has gone viral. Everybody's talking about it.
Uh-oh.
Joe Burrow, he is a player. He goes into the players. But what we actually found out is he took off his mask or his helmet, whatever.
Helmet.
and he was no longer identifiable, and he went in with the coaches. And they just followed him, and they had no say in the matter. And we can see here. We see here, Joe Burrow's going, that's Zach Taylor, and he's like, oh, yes, of course, yes, sir, whatever you say, sir. And then Lou Anarumo was following him, and you can see the people standing around.
I did not see the things that you were saying.
Okay,
It
watch
was
closely.
A very Fox News description.
So you can see you see the woman there just making sure that nobody is catching on camera. She did not see Ben Baby.
I
She
see
did
a
not
guy
see
walking with pumpkins.
Yeah.
Are you sure this is even anything to do with the Cincinnati
That was a
Bengals?
helmet.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So Ben, what
not
happened?
wearing my glasses.
What happened here? What happened? We have for a long time. I have said
Analyze the clip, Ben.
I have said that Joe Burrow is the real coach of the Bengals. He calls the shots.
Ben.
I think Joe will disagree. He will say Zach indeed calls the shots here. And it's been interesting. You've seen Zach interject himself more so into things than we've seen previously, going back to the Jamar Chase plan. Zach made it a point to say that it was his plan when they were managing Joe Burrow's health in the offseason and in training camp, the load management, if you will. It was that Zach was in the coaching staff was being proactive. So I thought that was interesting. That's something that hasn't really been discussed a ton. But yeah, when Joe came off the field, I thought it was strange that he went straight into the coach's area, or I guess kind of that stairway, that hallway that leads into the coach's offices instead of going into the locker room. And we've seen him even after rough losses go straight in the locker room, whether that be home on the road. And this was a unique deal. So I asked him about it after the game, and he said it was a positive conversation. He wanted to keep it private, but just wanted to I think that was the sentiment he wanted to convey. And I'm curious to see what more comes out of that. What was the message that he really wanted him and Zach to have? And he said it was a mutual conversation.
Yeah. No, they asked him, they said, whose idea was it to have the conversation, right? And he said it was mutual, which that tells you everything. That means it was my idea. Like, I can't say that, but the player called the coach into the office, like, he to chew him out. That is unheard of.
Ben, baby.
Hold on. Ben has something to say. Go.
Oh,
No,
yeah.
I have something to say.
I think the chewing out, I think it might be a little presumptuous here, but
just a little though. Probably not that presumptuous.
What do you think about chewing up? Chewing
I
in?
think the thing to keep in mind too,
Chewing down.
and we wrote about it on ESPN, is that this is the longest stretch of losing Joe Burrow has ever heard in his life. Going back, if you include the Baltimore game, which now you can throw this one in as well. He's technically been in games that Burrow has started. He's lost 5 straight games, 4 if you don't count the Baltimore injury. That's never happened, I think, in his entire life.
Yeah.
And before the game, he called it one of the more difficult stretches that he's dealt with over the last 6 to 8 months for a guy who's so used to winning. It's funny. I actually talked to his old high school coordinator back at Athens, and they lost the first game of the regular season, and they never lost another regular season game again back when he was a sophomore all the way up until his senior year. So you can definitely tell that Joe's thinking about a lot of things. I thought Kelsey Conway from the Inquirer asked a really good question as well about maybe how Joe might change how he is a leader. And he said that there's going to be a lot of critical thinking he's going to have to do. And I thought that was really fascinating. So
did you say critical drinking?
Critical thinking.
Got you.
Yes.
Just to clarify for the audience. Now,
Ben,
Plenty hydrated.
Ben, I want to probe a little bit. When he was talking about this mutual decision and all of that, smiles on his face, frown on his face, frustration on his face. Describe the face, Ben.
I think it's the typical Joe Burrow face that we get. Not a lot of expression unless you're good at cracking jokes, which we try to do from time to time to keep the mood light. But Joe's a serious guy, so it was the serious.
He loves winning.
Here.
He loves to win, and he does it well.
Well, he's not a serious dresser. I've never seen him.
He kind of is. He kind of is that. In
maybe
your
too
generation,
serious,
no, your generation doesn't really get it.
Yeah. Here's the thing, Mr. Ben Baby. Let us talk about what's really going on, which is we talked about right before you joined the show. The offense was fine. I mean, it wasn't exceptional, but it was fine. It's the defense. And
defense.
Jesse Bates. I used to call him the Joe Burrow of the defense.
Yes.
Back, when we made that Super Bowl run, he was probably the MVP.
Or is Joe Burrow
playoffs.
the DJ Reader of the offense? Hard to tell.
Well, no, and DJ Reader. Do you remember? This is the funny thing about DJ Reader and Jesse Bates. Those guys, DJ Reader, the Tennessee game, he took over. Derrick Henry was a non-factor. Jesse Bates, game after game, passes broken up, interceptions, tipping the ball, overtime, Kansas City. keeping them in the Super Bowl with the halftime right before halftime. I mean, here's the thing. If you're Joe Burrow, yes, he wants Jamar Chase. Yes, he wants T. Higgins. But this has got to be bothering you, the whole, we say it's a narrative. They try to break the narrative. There's been a lot of propaganda that you and I have seen to say Mike Brown is not actually cheap. But it's kind of becoming obvious again that they're just not going to invest. And you saw Colin Cowherd in the beginning. He's saying, let's just say that they're cheap. And it's catching up with them. They're losing their talented veterans.
Yeah. So the Jesse Bates situation, I don't think it was a matter of necessarily if they wanted to spend the money. I think it's that they just didn't feel there was positional value in paying a safety in what Jesse was looking at and that kind of the money that he was seeking. So I think it was just that the position of safety was something they did not feel like they needed to invest in. Obviously, in hindsight, was not the correct decision. And when you look at what Jesse's doing in Atlanta, what he did in that Super Bowl run, and also after they already made that decision to say, hey, we're not going to re-sign him and we'll kind of let him play out. And really that goes back to even before the 2021 season when Jesse wanted his contract extension and he said, they don't feel like I'm a top 5 safety in all of that. So, I think the thing to keep in mind with Jesse and why he was so good here is because of how much range he covered, how smart he was, how good he was with his ball instincts. It basically gave Lou Anarumo an extra defender on the field because you could play single high coverage, feel really good about Jesse being able to cover a lot of ground. And Lou got to work with those other 10 defenders and be really creative. And then you look at that defense as well. I mean, you talk about DJ Reader, Trey Hendrickson, Chidobe Awuzie was playing really well at that time. You go back and you throw Jesse into the mix, Vaughn into the mix, the linebackers. That was a really, really, really good defense. Probably the best defense Joe Burrow is ever going to have. And if they would have won the Super Bowl, you would have pointed to really the defense as being the catalyst. When you look at how many field goals they had to settle for in that playoff run, it was really the defense that had played really well. And if the offense had played slightly better in that Super Bowl game, they would have won it. Not to rehash old wounds here.
No, but
okay.
but the thing is, but the thing is, Mr. Baby, the thing is this. I agree with you. Von Bell was playing at a different level. Chidobe was playing different. Then he got injured. A lot of stuff happens. But those two guys were the pillars. If you look at all the good teams, look at Chris Jones. He wanted a big contract. There was the fight. They got it done because he is the pillar of their defense. Like there's certain guys, Whitworth and Zeitler. Let's just say Whitworth. Forget Zeitler. I mean, he was fantastic. But I'm just saying, if we just say Whitworth was the pillar of your offensive line. Like there are certain guys you don't touch, even if you're not necessarily going to get the most value. They're not the youngest. It's not the best deal. You got to just keep those guys. The Bengals are the only team that let those guys go time after time.
Now let's add, despite the fact that they're not good at drafting. Let's just
but then they land these guys like Jesse Bates in the second round, a home run pick. You got to hold on to them. And a lot of people now are saying, now they can't even stop a nosebleed. I don't even think that's accurate. Nosebleeds. Here's the thing. I get a lot of nosebleeds. There's a whole strategy. You take the tissue, you roll it, and then you twist it. I mean, you know what I'm talking about. It's not that simple. I don't think they can even stop themselves from drooling, when they're asleep at night. Like you just, move your head a little bit. They can't stop anything. This Jaden Daniels guy, this offense comes out, and they were torching us on the ground, in the air. I mean, where do we go from here? Bengals fans don't really have any hope.
I will say Patrick Mahomes just came off one of his worst performances in his career a week ago. And so, I do think that should be taken into consideration. I think this is really more of a matchup situation. I thought Jaden Daniels absolutely balled out. And it's interesting. When we did our ESPN did a QB Confidential, we talked to a lot of players around the league. And one of the questions, it was an anonymous survey. And one of them was, which quarterback in this year's draft class do you believe is going to be the best? A lot of people, even though Caleb Williams won, a lot of people thought Jaden Daniels was going to be that guy. And when you watched him yesterday, he was so good at extending the pocket, extending plays, and his precision and his ability to kind of keep moving through his progressions downfield. His ball placement was incredible. Him and Cliff Kingsbury, my guy, who also, y'all will like this. Fun fact, his high school nickname, their mascot, they were the Unicorns. A lot of people don't talk about that enough. It's an understated fact about Cliff, but yes, he was a New Braunfels unicorn. They went through and they really schemed up a really good game plan. And going back, I haven't had a ton of time to go back and watch the tape, but I think when you look at how well Jaden Daniels ran against New York in the previous week, it really looked like the Bengals kept that, in the top of their mind. They played a lot of zone, and I believe Next Gen Stats had them. Jane Daniels on second downs was 11 for 11 against zone, and so he was really doing a good job. I think Lou did not want Jaden to beat them on the ground, especially when you look at the defensive tackles that were out. And Cliff and Jaden did a really good job of saying, okay, we're there. They know we're going to try to run it. Let's try to beat them through the air. And they absolutely had no answer. So I think you just have to tip your cap and say that was a really good game plan. And Jaden Daniels played exceptionally well.
Well, I like it. I like your angle. I like it. And you're right. We did do well against Mahomes. The way I explain the Mahomes thing is it's a veteran team. Veteran teams can always squeeze a little bit out of their bodies. Those guys, Sam Hubbard had his only good game of the year. These guys, like in the playoffs, right? Like Von Miller against the Bengals in the playoffs. Like these guys, their bodies are hurting, right? I know. When I just try to do the show, I really have to push sometimes. Yeah. But I can only do the show for half an hour. If it goes to an hour, I'm done, right? Yeah. And this is what's going on.
We have to bring the oxygen.
Yes. So I think I don't think this defense is going to be good this year. The secondary does not have a guy that takes away half the field like Jesse Bates, and we only have Trey Hendrickson. He's the only defensive lineman that's really accounting for anything right now. But Mr. Ben Baby, I do want to move on, and we want to get your prediction. But if it's okay, we have a caller because look, a lot of Bengals fans are frustrated with the team. I'm sure you know. And they're calling for Mike Brown to sell the team, right? And so we are interviewing potential owners on the show. This first person has no ties to Cincinnati. However, Mr. You shouldn't be surprised. She's a very wealthy woman, and she is actually a big fan of a lot of Cincinnati things. She has Grater's ice cream helicoptered into her house.
Wow.
And so we're going to get her on the phone. Let me see. Okay, yes, she's here.
Hello, boys. Great to finally make it on here. You two are very hard to get a hold of.
Well, we still share Dadio's 1987 car phone.
So, Oprah, what would you do as an owner to make the Bengals a top-notch organization?
Oh, boy, it's all about people, right? Do they feel valued? Do they feel special? Can you uplift them? Just today, I was crossing the street, and I held out my hand to feel the gentle autumn breeze when a beautiful Luna moth tickled my finger. I want all of us to feel like Luna moths.
Wow. I'm getting goosebumps already. But, Oprah, how would you uplift us? How could you help us reach millions and millions of Bengals fans who have surplus income?
You have a duty to use your platform to affect change. You have to inspire. Tell people to get out there and vote. Seriously, this election will decide the fate of our democracy, people.
Yeah, that's what I've been saying. And not only that, but you'll never have to vote again. It's such a great deal.
No. Oprah, he's had too much hydrogenated oil today. It tends to give him what I call gastrofascist paresis.
But you also have to give to people so that they can give themselves to you wholly. Open up emotionally. Think of it as perineum sunning for the soul.
Well, thank you for that, Oprah. We have to step up, be better people. It reminds me of the Southern saying, if your aunt had balls, she'd be your uncle.
I think you're close. At the Oprah Winfrey Show, we started with just giving out these little chocolates. We taped them under people's seats. Then we moved up to movie tickets, and all of a sudden, we were giving away cars.
Well, I don't know if we have the budget for that, Oprah.
Cars?
No, the chocolates.
But what we can give away are these slips of paper representing holdings in the #1 Bengals podcast, a multinational corporation worth over $200.
Well, every situation is different. Not every show is going to go national, right, guys? I always say sometimes you just be content with who you are, and you always have to be willing to move on to something new and exciting, something that isn't really about success per se.
I think Oprah just called us losers.
Guys, I really got to jump off. Michelle and I have a lunch date. Michelle Obama.
Oh, okay, so I guess this will just be the... Well, Mr. Ben Baby, so that is interviewee number 1. You just saw right there. She had to jump off the phone. Obviously, she'll be back.
Who was that?
Oprah Winfrey, the Oprah Winfrey.
Yeah, Oprah Winfrey.
Never heard of her.
Yeah. No. But, just get it out there. Maybe on ESPN you can talk about this tomorrow and say, hey, prospective Bengals owner came on the #1 Bengals podcast along with me.
Report this.
And
as fact.
Yes.
Ben.
Ben?
Well, I think the number one allure for the guys in the locker room is Oprah, if she ends up buying the team, will walk in and go, "You get an extension, you get an extension, you get an extension."
That's what we were hoping.
Clearly,
Yes.
I
a
think-
ton of appeal. So we'll see if this has legs, but it's hard for me to see that happening here. So
Really?
but I like the idea.
Okay. Well, so yeah,
You
that
know,
is-
you know what?
yeah.
What else we could try to do is
Yeah.
is get Taylor Swift romantically interested in Joe Burrow. Game
we could do
changer.
that. We could do that. We'll win a lot more games.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, Mr. Ben Baby, we want to get your prediction for the Bengals are welcoming. Well, I don't know where the game is. Nobody even knows yet. It's in Carolina. It's in
People
Cincinnati.
do know, but if you look things
Yeah.
up, then you would know.
Yeah. Ben and John, I'm sure you know. So it is one of these places. It's in Carolina or it's in Cincinnati. And they're going to face Andy Dalton, their old quarterback, who's actually an old quarterback now, but he has a beard. He has some anger. He is not as, let us say, nice and gentle. He look, he has that old man strength and he has that I don't care anymore attitude. And John, for the first time in the NFL, I think we're seeing the Texan, I know, Ben, you're from Texas.
Yeah,
I
don't
see
know,
that gun.
Why are you reintroducing Andy Dalton to Ben Baby? He's followed him his entire
Yeah.
career, and he also covered him for the Bengals in his first year here.
Exactly. So yeah, just refreshing things. Yeah, refreshing in memory, Ben. But I mean, he looks aggressive on the field and smart with his passes. I saw a 30-second clip, but still, he looks really good
Well, he looked good here sometimes too.
with AJ Green. Yeah.
I wonder if the older you get, like we saw with Joe Flacco last year in
Yeah.
Cleveland, you just start to just throw the ball wherever
Yeah.
you feel like. You don't really think about it. You just go, oh, like Joe Flacco would see a guy in double coverage. He goes, I'll just go ahead and squeeze it in there.
Ben,
Exactly.
as a QB
Sometimes it
coach,
works, sometimes it doesn't. But
Yeah.
Andy is going to have Andy's played well, has a couple wins against the Bengals. What's insane is this is the fourth time he's already playing against him. And I think this will be his, fourth different team?
All in the NFC. That's the craziest part. All in the NFC.
so,
Yeah.
listen,
it's no accident. The NFL is setting us up on purpose.
He's clearly following them.
I wanted to say, Ben, that really what it is every quarterback has like 4 games a season where they could surprise another team and be new.
Yeah.
And that's exactly what happened with Jake Browning last year.
Yeah.
I mean, once people catch on to you, that's when it becomes a challenge.
But let's be clear. Andy Dalton, John, it looks like he has, and again, that 30-second clip looks like he has good blocking. Andy Dalton with good blocking can be dangerous. Right, John? You agree? Especially going against a terrible defense like ours.
I mean, he went against a terrible defense in the Raiders, so that's to be seen. But
nobody knows that. Nobody watches the Raiders. Or knows how
And
good
I mean, the
they are.
Bengals can't really rely on their pass rush now. I think Sam Hubbard averaged like 6 yards of separation from Jaden Daniels last night. So yeah, it's a good matchup, I think, for both quarterbacks, just like it was on Monday night. And maybe we have a shootout on our hands again.
I think so. And it's going to be fun. But yeah, Texan Gunslinger versus Ohio, what do you call them?
Mudslinger.
Mudslinger. yeah.
Yeah.
But look, Mr. Ben Baby, we need to get your official. Well, actually, first let me ask one thing. You were there, Andy Dalton's last year. How much does he hate Zach Taylor? And is that going to be a factor in this game?
I don't think it's going to be a fact. I would think time has healed any wounds if they were there. I think Andy understood what was going to happen.
On his birthday.
Correct. Yeah, it is never forgotten that he was benched on his birthday. I mean, Andy finished the year. They got along well enough. But I'm sure Andy would love to get another win over the Bengals. I believe he's 2-1, if I'm not mistaken. So he's trying to go 3-1, which would be a pretty insane stat. But,
over Zach Taylor. I think he likes the Bengals. I think it's the Zach Taylor he doesn't like. And by the way, the Andy Dalton revenge tour is in full motion. He beat Marvin Lewis last week.
Yeah, and gave him a hug afterward to really
rub it in, to like drive the knife further into his back.
Poor old man, look what they did to you.
He is on fire. Andy Dalton's on fire. I wish we could get Andy Dalton.
Another ginger joke, man. I mean, come on.
Yeah. Look, Mr. Ben Baby, your prediction for this game. Bengals, Panthers.
I'll be honest. So I actually was not surprised the Bengals lost to New England and Washington. I told my ESPN colleagues who cover those respective teams, said, don't be shocked if your teams end up winning this game here. This game, however, Carolina is really bad. It would take. I mean, I understand Andy's there, and he seems to be playing well. That being said, I feel like the Bengals should be able to win this one. If not, here's what's going to happen. you're looking at 3 losses to 3 of the worst teams from a year ago, which is going to be really rough. 0-4. I think any kind of urgency you had last week inside that locker room is going to be ratcheted up to an even higher level because you cannot lose this game. There is no more margin for error. You cannot talk about an easy schedule anymore and keep dropping games like this.
Yeah.
Bengals, they have to find a way to put it all together, be better in the red zone, be better defensively. And guys are, in that locker room, Logan Wilson made an interesting point. He said, people need to know that we're the most frustrated group here. I know that fans are upset. Everybody heard the boos. But in that locker room, they were easily the most frustrated about how things have gone. They did not expect to be 0-3 at this point, and they are looking to find any kind of answer to get this thing sorted out. And we'll see if they can get some health back, getting Sheldon Rankins back, getting BJ Hill back, just getting some bodies on that defensive line, I think will be huge.
You actually answered a question of mine, Ben, because I wanted to. I know you don't speak for everyone in the reporters' circle for the Bengals, but I want to commend just in general, just addressing the slow starts, because I feel like I think it was Ted Karras who kind of said, like, I'm done talking about like week 1 and starting out the gate slow, and you guys kind of pressed that issue, and now like you said, this is the quote unquote easy part of the schedule, and you're looking at a potentially 0-4. I just wonder if that has a tangible effect that you've kind of seen in the locker room about like here we go again, and it keeps getting talked about.
Yeah, I think after that first game, players are like, what's going on here? I think they're like, everybody you ask, you're like, I don't really have an answer. Like, we understand it. We did it. And they're like, frankly, I don't know why we keep losing these games early. And I think Zach is going to have some big questions to answer. Now, it could be as simple as Joe isn't as healthy as we've been led to believe, especially in that week 1 game, given what we saw from Joe in training camp. I know that many people view training camp through many different lenses, even amongst my colleagues. The way that I saw it, I was not shocked at the way Burrow looked in that New England game. It has been encouraging, if you're a Bengals fan, to see him be a little bit better. So, if you're Zach Taylor, is it as simple as, our quarterback just hasn't been healthy at the beginning of the last few seasons? Or is there something we are just not doing well in order to be ready for the season? And Ted told me point blank, he said, listen, I feel like we've had more padded practices. I feel like we had a greater, the way that we built camp, we should have been ready for these games. But, maybe they need to play in more preseason games. Jermaine Pratt told me, he said, listen, when all the missed tackles that we had against New England, we didn't do any tackling, in training camp. And you can't just magically learn how to tackle in week 1 if you don't do any tackling leading up to that. It's almost like a muscle you have to build.
But see, how would Zach Taylor know that you have to practice tackling? You know what I'm saying? Like
someone's got to teach you these things.
No, but I'm just saying, like, when you get on the airplane, they don't make you practice, the airplane being filled with water and putting that. They just tell you about it, and you're like, okay, I'll be ready when it happens.
Yeah, Joe Burrow's got to take him aside and tell
I just feel like Zach Taylor, this is unfair to him. He doesn't know. He's like 27. But here's the thing, Mr. Ben Baby, do you have to go, or can you wait for our predictions?
Oh no, I can wait.
Okay.
I think he wants to wait. I see that in his eyes.
I think he likes to.
He wants to take this back to ESPN.
Yeah, you can use this.
You journalist.
And by the way, John, I do appreciate you appreciating Ben, but we have been calling out the team for the slow starts on this show as well. I just want to remind you.
We don't have
which
a
is, by the way, the number
team. I think that's why Ben is on the show.
I have been working on the media passes, the press passes. I've been working on them, Ben.
I hear Drew Chrisman has one available if you need one. So
yes.
And by the way,
and we look kind of alike.
Yeah. And by the way, none of your ESPN shows have a cat in the ceiling that is so insightful. A ceiling cat.
Yeah.
But
let me actually, speaking of your ESPN shows, Ben, I know that you are not all alike, but I watched every single ESPN show this morning, and everybody was bashing Joe Burrow not bringing up the defense. Actually, I have a clip about that.
I'm tired of all the excuses for Joe Burrow. Oh, the defense let Joe Burrow. No, Joe Burrow let Joe Burrow down. Joe Burrow let the offense down. Joe Burrow let the team down.
He saw his defense couldn't stop him. So now he has to find a way to get the ball in the end zone because you're going to be down. Think about it. They were down one time 13. His team settled for 2 field goals. That was the difference. He saw his defense couldn't stop Washington. You've got to match that offense.
So here's the thing
he speaks the truth. I agree with him, by the way. I haven't had a chance to speak on the show.
I just want to say, can you tell
that pass
Shannon
to Yoshi?
Yeah. Can you just tell Shannon and Chris Canty that they are welcome to come on the show and they can debate us, and we will bring our own analytics department on. We have what's called TFF, true football focus.
Yeah.
We have our own analytics department,
completely Russian
dedicated to Joe Burrow, and we will prove that it is not Joe Burrow's fault that the defense couldn't stop Jaden Daniels. We will prove that to him.
I will say that the question about, I think Shannon brought up an interesting point about Burrow in the red zone. And the one thing that has been common in the Kansas City game and in the game yesterday is that they are just not able to score in when the game's really in the balance to get those red zone conversions. And here's the other issue. The Bengals, John touched on this earlier, I think before I came on, the Bengals aren't getting a ton of drives on the field. I think they look at it, they might be in the bottom 5, bottom 3 in the amount of actual possessions that they're able to have. So if you are only getting a limited amount of possessions, listen, I went to North Texas. I'm not great at math. But I think I understand this. If you're only getting a certain amount of possessions, when you do get into the red zone, you have to get those touchdowns because the game is essentially being shortened on you. And the one thing that Ted said this after the game yesterday, and Joe has said this over the last couple of weeks, is that is really where the difference has been in these losses, in that they are not capitalizing. That red zone efficiency isn't where they need it to be. And because they are not getting the ball enough, these teams are going on long drives.
I agree.
That is a problem. And Joe's numbers in the red zone have looked a little different than in other parts of the field. Is that because of the window getting tighter?
No.
Just the feel thing? I think that those are questions about that, and that's something that if Joe continues to get better, we may see those red zone numbers continue to go up. But that's something that really has not been discussed.
Well,
but I think is something that is important.
I will discuss it, and I'll answer Shannon and Chris and anybody else. Joe Burrow has had very different personnel. He has new tight ends. He has Andre Yoshevach as his main receiver. I mean, Jamar Chase was not there mentally. T. Higgins was not there at all.
Also, by the way, Jamar's hamstrings didn't look great. I saw in a few runs he looked a little bit tight. Needed to do some down dog.
Yeah, but the point is, Joe Burrow has been fantastic, and they are welcome. Tell them they can come on our show, and it is actually bigger than ESPN in terms of the claim. ESPN is not the number one anything. We are number one. But okay, so we do one serious prediction and one of us predictions. So Dr. Hodgie, your prediction, go.
Oh my gosh. Well, where do I begin? The team that I saw on Monday night, that horrible night, is a bottom 5 NFL team. Take your biases aside, take your prejudices aside. This is a bottom 5 team. Okay? So my predictions here might not matter. I think the season is washed away. There is no hope. Stop lying to yourself. If it were me, I would let Joe sit out most of the games. Let's not have him be hurt. Don't waste the man. Let him heal. But, okay, so we're playing the Panthers. Fine. Well, hell hath no fury like an angry Andy Dalton. And what you're going to see is a massacre. What you're going to see is just a blowout. I predict 75-8. I don't know how they're going to get 8. Panthers. The Panthers.
Scorigami.
Yeah.
I think so.
Yeah, there will have to be a missed extra point and then a safety for us to get 8. But it's going to happen.
Wow.
And
okay. John.
I'll go Bengals 24, Panthers 23.
Player of the game, John.
T. Higgins. Why not?
Okay. Here's my thing. I am scared of Andy Dalton. Not because he's Andy Dalton. It's because it's Andy Dalton facing the Bengals. And the Bengals tend to make rookies look good. They tend to make no-name backups look good. I'm very scared of Andy Dalton coming into Cincinnati or playing at home, either one, whichever one actually happens, and having a great game. And for this reason, I think the Bengals are going to disappoint. Again, disappoint, and it's going to be a big disappointment. And the final score will be 38-31 Cincinnati. That is my prediction.
Wait a minute. How are they going to disappoint and yet also win by a touchdown?
So just like last week, right? This game, Commanders or Commandos or whatever, it was a disappointment. because they both teams were scoring a lot of points, right? So like, the who they think they're going to be, that baby language.
Yeah.
Bengals fans, they say disappoint when they score a point each time, right? It's like it's 7, you say 7 times.
A point.
Like this is a point.
This is a point. They're going to a point.
They're going to say it a lot because there's going to be a lot of points scored.
Wow.
Just like there was last week.
And I totally misunderstood that.
No, I know
thought
you did.
meant
But Ben
the more
got it.
common. I meant the more common word disappoint.
That's
which
disappoint.
means-
I'm saying disappoint.
You're saying disappoint. And I should have known that.
Yeah.
I somehow totally misread.
But Ben got it. Ben, you got it.
Ben got everything. He's a journalist.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So there you have it, Ben. That is really our predictions. We do have our Patreon. Should we serenade Ben with our charitable organization?
Ben,
Or no?
Ben, we all make a little bit of extra money sometimes, especially when we are ESPN journalists,
Right.
very famous like you are. And we
Yes.
don't know where to, let's say, give our tax-deductible donations.
Right.
And so we have a little song for you that might help.
Yeah. And you can share this song, on ESPN.
With Shannon Sharp.
With Shannon. He seems to have the monies. And with Chris Canty too. Why not? We're all friends here. There comes a time when the Bengals break your heart. When the fan. Oh, that is not how it's supposed to happen there. I'm so sorry.
Well, we don't have enough
Yeah.
money to
Yeah.
do the whole song, Ben.
I mean, you just press the button, the song plays.
So I don't know what we do here.
Ben,
You've
we
held this
need
guy
staff.
hostage for 40
We
minutes.
need
Okay,
staff.
so look.
We need
should-
money.
We should maybe cancel
Don't worry,
it.
I can play y'all a tune if y'all want it. If y'all,
Oh,
I can
this is
apply, I
great.
can
This is
apply
perfect.
the instrument here. If y'all
Maybe
want to sing along.
maybe he can accommodate this.
Yeah, get on key.
There you go. Y'all just got to pick it up.
When the Bengals break your heart, when the fans must come together as one.
There are grown men crying. Oh, so it's time to make them laugh.
With jokes, the greatest gift of all. We can't go on pretending day by day at 89 Mike Brown will suddenly change.
Oh, we're all a part of this football travesty. And so we speak. The truth is never free. We want the cash. We want the monies. We want the change that's underneath your couch to feed our tummies.
There's another thing here, supporting Hodgie's wives.
Stop saving for a rainy day. Give it to me.
I think that's it, guys. I think that's it. We nailed it.
I think we got it. All right,
That was
Mr. Ben Baby, thank you so much. And by the way,
Baby.
thank you so much. And by the way, I have to ask you something.
Yes.
Do your colleagues still call you Ben Baby? Because you've been there for 9 years, and you recently posted on your Instagram the change that we've seen. So do they call you Ben Baby or Ben Big Boy?
There was an unnamed player who once referred to me as Baby Ben, which is it was an insult. We won't describe what player it is. It's been a running joke on the beat. That player is no longer here. So sometimes I will get Baby Ben every now and then, but mostly it's just Ben Baby.
Well, Ben, if I may, as a fellow celebrity, you, sir, have aged like a fine wine. I mean, you look great. And if you ever want, to appear on one of my music videos, I would be glad to have you.
Of course.
Yes.
I really don't know why we just decided to have an impromptu jam. I think we crushed it. I'm not going to go back and listen to it, but I'm sure it sounded phenomenal.
I don't think anybody will, but
we don't,
I agree.
we
By the way,
never replay anything on this show. It happens. It goes on the airwaves.
it goes, yes, it disappears, hopefully. But here's the thing. So Ceiling Cat gave us $5 for the Live Aid Bengals, so thank you.
Can you imagine a cat
Ceiling
in the
Cat.
ceiling
Yes.
gave $5? Well, imagine how much
Shame
you
on
can
the
give.
rest of you.
Poor guy doesn't
Yeah.
even live in the rest of the house.
Got
He
more
lives
money
in a
than the
ceiling.
Reds.
And he's
But you
attacked.
can go to patreon.com/DHS Sports for that.
DH Sports.
You can also read John's articles
A to
on
Z
DHS Sports.
John
on DHS
has
Sports,
had
yeah.
some really, it's a shame, John, you didn't have more to say today, because John has had some really insightful takes on the Bengals losses and actually has given me hope. I know that my role on this show is to be a negative, ninny, but at the same time, John, you have uplifted me with hope in your tweets and in your analysis.
Yes.
Thank you for being John.
Thank you.
Double brain Sheeran.
Yes.
His brain has doubled.
And I want to thank Mr. Ben Baby of ESPN for being on the show, being so patient with us, our longest show ever. And, of course, John Double Brain Sheeran. We see over there, Dr. Hodgie Electric Smoji. Don't forget to subscribe, turn on notifications. And we will see you next time. So long. Thank you, Ceiling Cat, for paying for the expenses of this show.
We got to get some food into that ceiling for you, Ceiling Cat.
That's all we got.